So now we are on to renal circulation. So renal circulation, kidneys account for only 0.4% of the body weight. They receive about 21% of the cardiac output, the renal fraction. So the cardiac output total is going to be around 5 liters, and this receives about 21%, in other words, liter per minute. Renal artery divides into segmental arteries that gives rise to, I think the picture is going to be a whole lot better. So first we got the aorta. Aorta is going to be coming down. This is the aorta, and it comes down. And as it comes down, it forms the renal artery, which is going to be this. Then we have the interlobar arteries. Interlobar as in between the lobes. So interlobar arteries goes through here, followed by the arcuate arteries. Arcuate as in it forms the arc. After that, we have the interlobular. Uh, that's these arteries right here, interlobular arteries. It's also called radiate arteries, as in it radiates outwards. I think that's more of a better name for it anyway. So that's going to be the radiating arteries, and followed by the afferent arterioles. Afferent arterioles you can't see here, but where all of these the arteries that radiate from the arc are all forming a little right angle, and they all enter into the glomerulus or the Bowman's capsule, which is going to be the functional unit of the kidney. Well, nephron is a functional unit, but glomerulus is where the first part of the filtration happens, and that's where the afferent arteriole goes in. And see here is the glomerulus. That's where the capillaries inside the Bowman's capsule exists. And from there it leaves. From there it leaves and becomes the efferent arterioles. And we'll talk about vasa recta in a sec. But so from the efferent arterioles, it goes into peritubular capillaries. About 85% of the renal blood flow is going to be following this. From there, peritubular capillaries. Now it finally becomes a vein. It becomes interlobular veins, interlobular as in radiating veins or interlobular veins. Those are the little ones. And from there, the arcuate veins, the arcs. And then we have the interlobar veins, interlobar as in between the lobes. And then finally becomes renal veins again to the inferior vena cava. And that goes to the heart. So the inferior vena cava is going to be connected right up here. It's going to be coming in and attached to this. So the vasa recta, once we go to that picture, I think it's going to make much more sense. So let's see if I'm missing anything. So renal artery divides into segmental arteries that gives rise to interlobar arteries, up renal columns, within pyramids. You have arcuate arteries over pyramids, interlobular arteries up into cortex, and then we have branching afferent arterioles, each supplying one nephron, leads to a bowl of capillaries called the glomerulus. Blood is drained from the glomerulus by the efferent arterioles, lead to either peritubular capillaries or vasa recta around portion of the renal tubule. Interlobular veins or directly into arcuate veins, interlobar veins. So it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Renal vein empties into inferior vena cava. So, well, whatever is up here is better illustrated in this thing. So the first part, the peritubular capillaries, which is this one right here. So the peritubular capillaries, it's going to be part of the capillaries in the cortex. So you have your two functional differences, two structural differences in your nephron placement. So one, you have it where the loop of Henle and like much of the things go downwards, right near the middle or near the middle of the by the arcs, and those are called the juxtamedullary nephron. So these are only about 15% of the nephrons, but about 85% of them make up this structure here, which is called a cortical nephron. So the first part, the cortical nephron, that's going to be right here, cortical nephron. In the cortex, peritubular capillaries branch off of the efferent arterioles. So the peritubular capillaries, that's these right here. Actually, no, that's these right here. Branch off of the afferent arterioles. So that we have the afferent, as in going into the capillary bed inside the glomerulus, and the efferent is going to be exiting outwards. So it exits outwards and it forms a capillary bed, and that becomes the veins and forms into goes back down the root. So we have the peritubular capillaries followed by interlobular vein, arcuate veins, and interlobar veins. So that's this structure. But in the case of the juxtamedullary nephron, as in juxta, it just means around. Medullary means middle. So around the middle, nephrons is going to be these ones, and they don't have a capillary bed around its the proximal tubes, or these PCT and DCT means proximal convoluted tubes and distal convoluted tube. Basically, that just means proximal near it, near the exit. So it exits and it's making the convolutions. So that's the proximal convoluted tube, and this is forming it at after the further away from it. So that just makes this the distal convoluted tube. So it's proximal convoluted tube goes down, becomes the distal convoluted tube, and the vasa recta forms the capillary bed right along the loop. The loop is actually called loop of Henle, but it's coming up. So in the medulla, the efferent arterioles give rise to the vasa recta, supplying the nephron loop portion of the nephron. Okay. Each kidney has about 1.2 million nephrons. You only need about 1/3 of that for survival. Um, that's why you can live with like one kidney, and even that one kidney, you really need to uh, have a large portion of it either non-functional for you to need a new kidney or anything like that. So each composed of two principal parts: the renal corpuscle, which filters the blood plasma, and then we have the renal tubule, which is the long coiled tube that converts the filtrate into urine. So corpuscle is going to be this part right here, and the tubule is going to be all of this. Um, so the renal corpuscle consists of the glomerulus and the two-layered glomerular Bowman capsule that encloses the glomerulus. So the first two layers are actually the picture is going to be much better. So the glomerular capsule. Um, First we have the outer layer, which makes up the parietal. So as in anything perimeter or anything that comes up as peri, it just means the so around parietal perimeter peritoneum. So any of that. So parietal layer is going to be the outermost layer. It's made out of simple squamous epithelium, and I'm not sure if it's simple squamous. Yeah, it is simple squamous epithelium. So it makes up the simple squamous epithelium, and within that, within the first layer and the second layer, we have the glomerular space where the filtrates gets filtered out and through the proximal convoluted tubule. So the first part is the afferent arteriole, and notice how the afferent arteriole is much bigger than the efferent, which builds up pressure, and that pressure helps it filter out better. So the blood comes in and it goes through the tubules. So afferent is going to be much larger, so it's going to be coming in, and just by forming a smaller efferent arteriole, it's going to increase the pressure within the structure. So then we have the capillary bed, which is right here, and it's called the glomerulus. So we have podocytes of the visceral layer. So podocytes make up the second layer, which are going to be cells with like little projections that's going to have little slits. Those slits are going to dictate how much of the stuff is going to be able to pass through. Also, this on the capillary bed itself, I mean capillary under the podocytes, there are also two more layers right under there. It's gonna have a gel-like layer, which is called the basement membrane, and under that, the capillary itself is gonna have large pores, or it's called the fenestrated capillaries. Fenestrated capillaries are also present in structures where large molecules either have to get out or get in. So it functions in better release and absorptions. So we have the vascular pole and urinary pole. Vascular pole just means all of the vascular poles. Urinary poles is this side, where the urine, where the precursor to the urine leaves. So the next part is the renal tubules. So renal tubules is the uriniferous tubule, a duct that leads away from the glomerular capsule and ends at the tip of the medullary pyramid. Um, so the renal universe tubule is the entire thing. So in a few slides, this should be coming up. So this entire thing is going to be the tubule, and it's divided into over here. They were saying it's two parts to the kidney. So the corpuscle is the first part, and that's this, and the next part is the tubule, and that's going to be divided into four regions. So we got the proximal convoluted tubule, nephron loop, the loop of Henle that goes down, that makes a U, and then we have the collecting duct, which takes in urine from from more than one nephron and sends it out down to the end of the thing, the renal papillae. So first part we have the proximal convoluted tubule, arises from the glomerular capsule, longest and most coiled, simple cuboidal epithelium with prominent microvilli for majority of absorption. So the first part is going to be the proximal convoluted tubule, and it's going to absorb a whole lot of the stuff. So then we have the nephron loop, which is the loop of Henle, and it's a U-shaped portion of the thing. So we have thick segments that's both in the ascending and the descending. Let me see, there's a picture of it. So the ascending and the descending, they're both going to have thick parts, and they're thick because it's made out of cuboidal epithelium, cuboidal cells, and over here it's going to be simple squamous. And on top of that, the reason why is these are highly water permeable, and they want to just they want to have the simplest layer so that it permits the largest amount of water to either flow in or flow out. It mostly flows out, and we're going to see why later on. But this also have a lot of active transport on it. So a large portion of the ATP when goes to these parts, actually this part right here, the PCT, the proximal convoluted tube, where active transport takes place. So after that we have the nephron loop, loop of Henle, which is a long U-shaped portion of the renal tubule, and we have the descending limb and ascending limb. Thick segments have simple cuboidal epithelium, initial part of the descending limb and part of all of the ascending limb, heavily engaged in active transport of salts and have many mitochondria. So the bottom part, or the very lower end, is going to have the thin segment, which has simple squamous epithelium, forms the lower part of the descending limb, and cells are very permeable to water. And then we have the distal convoluted tubule, which begins shortly after the ascending limb re-enters the cortex. Shorter and less coiled than PC, proximal convoluted tube, and is going to have cuboidal epithelium without microvilli, because microvilli increases the surface and we don't need it for the distal part. And we can also see why that we don't need it there. So distal convoluted tube is the end of the nephron. So collecting duct is the thing that collects urine from all of the nephrons, actually a few of them, and it all comes together and forms the calyx. Empties into the calyx. So numerous collecting ducts converge towards the tip of the medullary pyramid. So papillary duct is going to be formed by a merger of several collecting ducts. Around 30 of the papillary ducts end in the tip of each papillae. Um, collecting and papillary ducts lined with simple cuboidal epithelium. So the collecting duct and the papillary ducts are going to be lined with simple cuboidal epithelium. So then we have the flow of fluid from point where glomerular filtrate is formed to the point where urine leaves the body. So we have the glomerular capsule, we have proximal convoluted tubule, nephron loop, and then distal convoluted tube and collecting duct, followed by the papillary duct, followed by papillary duct is the bottom part of the pyramid, followed by minor calyx, major calyx, renal pelvis, ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. So all of those stuff we just looked at right here. Glomerular capsule, followed by the PCT, loop of Henle, DCT, collecting duct, and it empties into the papillary duct, which empties into this part right here, which is the minor calyx and renal papillae.